My name is Sanjiv Goyal. Welcome to our show, Confession of a Futurist with Sanjiv Goyal. Every week, we bring some really phenomenal people who are making the difference, people who really want to solve the bigger problem. What is that bigger problem? The bigger problem is our global population is growing. We are expected to be 10 billion citizens on planet Earth by 2050. The way we are living, the way we are consuming natural resources is not sustainable. It's not going to happen. We will not have the quality of life we have today, 20 years from now. So today I have invited a very special friend of mine, Arturo. He is CEO of a company called Clara Foods. You may not have heard about his company, but they are doing some extremely amazing work to solve the problem of future. The question I was asking from him earlier before I invited him, can we change the disruption has happened? What we have done to humanity, what we have done to our planet in the last 100 years or 200 years, can we reverse it? If we change the way we eat? And the answer I got is yes. So let's ask him what he think about it. Welcome to our show, Arturo.
Sanjiv, thank you very much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. So Arturo, we don't have a lot of time, so I wanted to go to deeper questions very quickly.
Good.
But before we do that, do you have a confession for our audience?
What kind of confession are we talking about?
So anything you think in your life you would have done differently? I know you are a vegan person and you used to eat meat. And how that change happened and why?
Yeah, I grew up in Texas and I'm Mexican by heritage. I grew up eating, my 2 eggs for breakfast every morning like any good Mexican, and my barbecue every Sunday like any good Texan. And I would say I think my confession is I love meat, milk, and eggs. Like they're delicious. And I grew up eating these products as ingredients and as a center of my plate for the most formative years of my life. And for me, I never really connected the food that I was eating with the source and how did it actually get to my plate. It wasn't until I left Texas, went to DC, was at the USDA, and then spent some time in Boston that I began being much more critical and trying to understand what it actually take to bring my food to my plate. And I finally made the connection, and I became very angry.
You're like a warrior now. I call you food warrior because it's so amazing and so. I don't understand how the world doesn't even comprehend the complexities we have and how we have developed the food. And it's not sustainable. We all know that. We watch movies like Sea Piracy, and I'm not sure how accurate the facts are, but based on the research, it's pretty accurate that the whale is responsible for 70% of the oxygen we inhale. So help us understand how the food and the way you are thinking of food is going to change our future.
And it's not really our fault. Like we weren't even taught this. We had to find this information out through other means. And that's what got me angry. It's like, why didn't they teach me that animal agriculture emits more greenhouse gases than the entire transportation sector, than all the cars, planes, ships in the world combined? That 3/4 of the world's arable land is used for animal agriculture. Not just to grow these animals, but all the feed, like to feed these animals, all the grain that they have to consume to then convert into animal protein.
So it's interesting. We are cutting forest to grow plants and to feed these animals. And then it's very counterintuitive, right?
Exactly. Yeah. The majority of soy right? We think, oh, soy is destroying the planet. It's the majority of the soy that is consumed in the world is fed to animals, not to humans.
Wow.
The 80% of deforestation in the Amazon rainforest can be traced back to animal agriculture.
80%.
And these
That's
are
ridiculous.
I'm happy to send. Now, fortunately, there is a lot more organizations, even governments that are reporting this data. Right, the numbers are there. We're measuring these things now, and the kind of impact, the destructive impact that industrial animal agriculture has on the planet is enormous. And thinking about just public health, right? Three out of every 4 emerging infectious diseases like COVID are zoonotic, can be traced back to animals.
Wow.
And so we see how this over-reliance on animals is...
Yeah, like the mad cow disease too, right?
Exactly. Swine flu, right? Avian flu, all of these, so many of the of these, not just recent pandemics, but future pandemics are coming from our reliance on animals. And so I knew that there had to be a better way. And I spent just time thinking about, is there a way that we can have our cake and eat it too, right? That ultimately we don't that we don't have to force people into eating better, eating healthier, because it's not, if we don't make it easy for people, it's really hard to drive global impact. And so for me, I knew that the way to fix our broken food system was to just create a better product and use a better process. And that's why I founded Clara Foods.
So Arturo, philosophically it makes a lot of sense. And
yeah,
for all the disclaimer, I'm one of the investor in Clara Foods. But the big challenge I still see it is, we are hearing a lot. In fact, there are two of my friends just started a fund around investing into alternative protein. It's a big sector. We talk about nutritional food, all of that. But is it really solving problem, or is it still in infancy?
Yeah, it's such a great question, and it is still very much in infancy. I mean, we all hear about Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat, right?
That's it.
Beyond Meat went public. Impossible's and Burger King. These are massive companies. Combined, they are less than 1% of the meat market.
That's what I was about to say. It's nothing. So it's not really making a huge impact. And what I'm finding, it is mostly vegetarians are eating this food, so we are not able to change the people who are eating meat. What percentage of the people who are eating meat going to these products? That's another question.
Like the older generation of like meat substitutes and plant-based,
soya-based products.
Yeah, the majority of the consumers there were definitely, people who were vegan, vegetarian. Now, as the technology gets better, right, as we can develop better and better products, we can attract people that normally would not consume those products. So actually, I think Impossible and Beyond Meat both just released the profile of the consumers that are purchasing their products, and actually the majority of the consumers, the people who buy Impossible and Beyond, are meat eaters.
Oh, that's great. That's really a good news.
It's very, very promising. And so for me, my question is, well, how do we just blow that up? And ultimately, my goal is, how do we build the infrastructure? How do we enable not just the Beyond and Impossible, but all these other companies, the entire category, to transition to animal-free protein? How do we enable the world to do that? And the way that we are doing it specifically is by expanding the toolkit of ingredients, but specifically, we're starting off with eggs. And so how do I make it as easy as possible, especially where eggs companies people don't even think about using eggs, but you just need them because they do things that nothing else can do. And so if we can create ingredients that function and taste and have the nutrition and foaming and binding and gelling abilities of the foods, to give the taste and texture of the foods that we know and love, that's how we make real change. And it's coupling the taste and texture with the cost and scale. Because even if we have a delicious product, if we cannot get it into the hands of the people who need it most, right?
Yeah, if it is only for rich, who cares? I mean,
exactly. You know, I grew up in Mexico. I'm like, my mom's not going to change. You know, she's been buying the same exact thing for the last, 30 years, the same exact cake for Christmas, etc. How she's not going to switch into another product. How do we work with that company that already makes it and say, hey, this is a product that gets the same texture and the same leavening properties, but is a penny cheaper, right? And that's really how we can make a global difference.
So Arturo, I'm very familiar with Clara Food, and the work you are doing, to me, it is phenomenal, right? And I think there is a room for 1,000 other companies or maybe more to solve this problem, because it's not about solving the problem of only 7 billion people. We are talking about 10 billion people. So it's not just the problem of replacing or finding, changing the behavior. It's like creating new behavior for our customers and the new citizens who are going to be part of the planet Earth. And the next generation, especially I talk to my son, my daughter. My daughter just converted into vegetarian. She was eating meat and she's now vegetarian, almost vegan, not vegan yet. Cheese is hard to leave for me too. So I'm experimenting a lot with cashew. But let's talk about data. You have a lot of data. We are both engineers. So what percentage of the people on planet are primarily meat eater?
Like over 95%.
No way. Is it that much? 95% of the world primarily rely on meat as a food source?
In developing countries, some, people don't have access to meat right now.
It's the cost of the issue.
Consume it. Yes, correct. Yeah. So I would say developed countries for sure, in a lot of developing countries, but in some countries where meat is very cost prohibitive for those populations, it really is pretty rare.
So let's talk. See, primarily our audience are from Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And fairly, very aware and very, they do believe in sustainability. Yeah. I believe that. Majority of them. Most of my friends, I know they want to do something and they will love to be part of this movement. And I'm calling it not food innovation, it's a food movement, because it can't just happen overnight. And there are a lot of complexities. So 3 things I could understand are the challenges. One is, of course, you talked about the taste, because all the substitute and other product doesn't have the kind of taste is required. Second concern people have is nutritional value, even with Impossible Food and Beyond Meat and 6 other products. Is it really same? Is it more different? What is going on? Yeah. And the last one is really the texture. Texture is important, but more than texture is properties of that product, right? If I use egg, feel like egg. So these are the 3 key reasons people are not able to move or jump the ship in a way, based on my understanding. Now, there are 2 ways we can solve the problem. One way of solving the problem, what Impossible Food, Beyond Meat, and 6 other companies I know in my network trying to do. In fact, we had a person who is doing making meat, right? And a person making cheese, right? On our panel a few months ago. So actually almost 6 months ago. I can't believe that. Time just flies. So don't you think we should think of creating new kind of food? Because I think we are trying too hard to replicate what we have instead of thinking of creating new kind of food. Like we go to some nice restaurant, they have this fusion food, they create new thing, and you try it. So, wow, that's really good. I may still eat pizza and rice and other things every single day, but I won't mind trying other kind of food.
We need both approaches. But I think because the thing is, again, if we create new kinds of foods, you get into the same problem of adoption, right? Ultimately, if you're changing consumer habits, we lose a lot of people in the process, right? And so there is that challenge where a lot of people, no matter what they tell you, they still have that their palates are not incredibly dynamic, right? They're used to the same exact kinds of foods, and so it is really important if we're going to transition the world to animal-free protein, that we're able to meet people exactly where they're at and make that transition as easy as possible. But then to your point, and that's one thing that I love about what we're doing at Clara, is how do we just blow past this paradigm shift of trying to compare, and then we can make something that, like in Silicon Valley, right, where you just make something that makes the old system obsolete.
True,
right?
True,
and that's where we have a protein that is able to create incredible kinds of protein beverages that don't have all this sugar and all this crap that's added to them, and make it very clean tasting. And that's where we see, well, look, if we can just make a fundamentally better product, we can compete and blow, and ultimately drive adoption that way, right? And I think similar to the kind of iPhone concept, where you can create something, or the automobile, right, making the horse obsolete. If we can develop a really kick-ass kind of egg, right, that is able to outperform the traditional chicken egg across all these applications, there could be massive adoption that way. And so I think, to your point, I think it's a twofer, because we work with big companies that are looking, that they have consumers that have been buying the same product for decades. Like, they don't want to switch.
Yeah, you still want the same pancake and same waffle in the breakfast.
Exactly. Like, you'll want the same thing that your grandma used to make you when you were little, right? Food is a little different than like some of this technology, because
it's too personal.
There is a very strong emotional, personal component to it. But I think your point is very valid, and I think there's innovation that needs to happen across both fronts. And that's why, to your point, we need 1,000 companies that are innovating across the spectrum.
So let's go a little, to make this question a little more complex. We all know the population is growing, and which is a good thing. We are able to keep more people healthy, safe. COVID has definitely created a lot of interesting challenges, and we have lost a lot of people, but humanity hasn't lost hope, and I'm really glad for that. We are working together, and I'm glad we are opening the borders, and I'm glad we are working together to solve these problems. But we still don't have, let's say, half of the world change into vegetarian or vegan.
Yeah.
It's going to definitely reduce some burden on our earth. We need to grow less, and land will be available to grow more kind of food. But don't you think it's time for us to think differently, even growing the plants? So question I have is, do you see in near future we'll be investing and we'll be working on more around vertical farming, or building things in the labs? And is it sustainable, or is it more in terms of like, whenever we grow things in the lab, are we really eco-friendly? Are we sustainable or not?
Yeah. The way that I think about it is, there will for these products, whatever we're doing or other companies, there's going to be a carbon, water, and land footprint to it, right? These are not, you need inputs to make these outputs, right? And so there's going to be some inherent inefficiencies. What I always anchor to is to not compare these products to the almighty, but comparing them to the alternative. And we know that whether it's every single plant-based burger, cell-based burger, fermentation-based, egg replacer, plant-based milks, so almond milks, even almond milks that get a lot of flack because almonds are very water intensive.
Yeah.
You compare some of the most water intensive plant-based products or vegan products, they are fundamentally, across almost every metric, far more sustainable than growing animals.
100%. That's I'm good with that. But my question is really, Arturo, the challenge I have which I'm not able to comprehend.
Yeah.
The California size is not growing. Let's say California population is 40% more. I don't have more land mass to grow anything.
Well, the thing is, if we transition the world, like if more, so, and I think it's less about getting half the world to go vegan or vegetarian as much as like, that would be the same impact as having everyone just consume half as much meat and animal products, right? And I think that's a lot more doable for people. But to your point, like what I said earlier, right, 3/4 of, like, we have enough. So the thing is, we have enough land on the planet to feed the 10 billion people that we need.
And what we need to do for that? That's my question. I'm glad you're on that.
Yeah. So the thing is, 3/4 of that land is used to grow animals.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're able to reduce our reliance on growing animals for food, we're able to gain all that efficiency, that we're able to convert that, like the soy or the grains or the legumes that these animals are consuming can be fed to humans and avoid this massive inefficiency that we have in our system today. And we have enough land to feed everyone on the planet today and feed them a very high quality, nutritious diet. People are dying not because of a lack of food, but this unequal access to it. And so I'm a firm believer that if we can really fundamentally shift the way that we consume, and that really starts with us, right? Initially, it's like these companies would not be as successful, these impossible foods. Right now, they're expensive because they're small companies, right? Food is a scale game. You need massive scale to compete. These factory farms, right, of growing animals in these massive facilities, they've had decades to scale. Absolutely. These companies are only a few years old, and so it will take time for them to scale, but ultimately the efficiency is there. Like using microorganisms, using cells, and using plants are fundamentally far more efficient systems to produce it, so you can do a lot more with less. And the vertical farming and these other practices that you've mentioned, those are all also, I think, very valuable, and especially in certain crops, can be a lot more efficient than using land. And so I think, again, with the food system and how complex the problem is, I don't think it's a silver bullet, like one single answer. I think we're going to need, we really do fundamentally need a broad-based approach.
All right. We have a few minutes, and I would like our audience to know a little bit about you. So what's your favorite food?
I'm a little basic. My favorite food is a sandwich.
Oh.
With mayonnaise, mustard, ham, vegan cheese. There's really amazing ones now out there. Tomatoes, lettuce, onions, and avocado. And avocado by far. With avocado, everything is better.
That's true. I agree with that. It's funny. First time when I tried avocado, it was like, really? And I love it now. It's an amazing fruit. So, Arturo, our world is evolving.
Yeah.
There was a time when we were building civilization right next to the water. That was the most important thing.
Yeah.
Then the point I'm trying to make it is, with all the evolution we have, we are still spending a lot of our resources in logistics. So I grow somewhere, the food come here. Yeah. Half of the food is already wasted, or more possibly. And that's the factories come in and process food and all of that. Do you see that organization like yours can create a different kind of world? And that means the world which is pretty self-contained. It looks like a very sci-fi kind of, but I envision that with the battery technology, with the solar technology, can we build self-contained cities anywhere on planet, and which is built with the best of the best products. So this is not even a question what we are talking here. And we save everything, because the waste, I believe the bigger problem we have, along with the problem we talked about meat, is the waste.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, you had the African swine flu in China, this 2019 and into 2020. That China produces is home to, I think, a quarter of the world's pigs. 40% of them had to be destroyed, had to be killed because of the swine flu. And think about waste, right? Like how many people could that have fed? And that's the problem with using these using
industrialized way of doing things.
These products, exactly. The beauty about these technologies, like for us, we use fermentation, and same with the brewers use yeast to convert sugar into alcohol to make beer and wine. Our yeast naturally converts that same sugar into protein. And you think about where can you brew, right? Unlike growing, unlike factory farms, working with animals in hot temperatures, especially with climate change, right? There's a lot of sensitivity where it doesn't rain or where you need access to closed systems. These like for us, for our fermenters, you can grow them in the Middle East, or you can grow them anywhere in the world. As long as you have access to sugar and to water, you can have a Clara brewery anywhere in the world making very high quality egg protein.
So we don't have much time, Arturo. I want to thank you for your time today, and really, really appreciate your time. I always enjoy talking to you. But the big thing I have learned today is there is a future, and the future definitely looks better than the way we see it today. It's going to be brighter. There are a lot of smart people like Arturo helping us build that future or explore that future. We will find ways to solve these problems in a better way, and Earth will be more sustainable in next 10 to 20 years. Am I correct?
Yes, I'm an inherent optimist, and I believe that, with the caveat that it's going to take all of us. We need everyone to be advocating for these products, to be buying them on the market, to really engage and get their families to consume these products, to normalize not having to eat meat every single day for every single meal, eat eggs every single day. Like, that is something that culturally we can move past, and that will take all of us.
Thank you very much, Arturo, for your time. I would like to thank Radio Zindagi for giving me this opportunity. And thanks to all our audience. Because of you, we have the show. Please do write to us. Send messages on Facebook if you have a question for me or Arturo, and we will respond to it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all very much. Such a pleasure. Thank you, Sanjiv.